Do you remember when Trump administration, Mike Pompeo, I think at this point Mike Pompeo was head of the CIA, or he might have just moved over um, to Secretary of State, but he was on stage and he was joking about killing Russians. Meaning an article was, I think it was Canary Press. So don't quote me on where it was. And I pretty much can find the article if I need to. But ultimately, Pompeo was essentially on stage. And he made the point that in the campaigns that the United States is engaged in Syria, we've killed hundreds of Russians. That's a bombshell. Like, a country that we've designated as our enemy, another nuclear power, and we are joking about killing hundreds of their people in our campaigns. We're in a country that we're not supposed to be in, and we're killing people who are supposed to be there, meaning who are invited. Vladimir Putin never mentioned that, never brought it up, and I would wager anything that it was never talked about in Russia. The moment that you talk about something, it becomes real. Meaning, if Vladimir Putin brings that up, if he goes to the press with that, if that's one of those things that becomes an issue in the country itself, you got to deal with it. You can't just necessarily let that stew. I mean, people are looking to you to be their strong man, to be their protector. If nothing else, they want you to represent their interests, even if you're going to be a crook in the process of doing so. You got to represent their interests. If that's real, you got to deal with it. Stories are kind of like that. I watched the news all day yesterday. And as I watched the news, well, all day is too strong, maybe 3 hours. But Fox, CNN, MSNBC. And the thing that I expected to hear, just because of the ramifications or the potential ramifications for us, considering what's going on in the domestic politics and the history of this country and the whole wag the dog thing, I expected it to be talked about. At some point, through some length, at the very least, some foreign policy guy, some talking head to tell me what this may or may not mean. I didn't get that. What is taking place across the globe that may have massive geopolitical consequences for us in this country right now, even though the mainstream media is not talking about it in the least, is that the Houthis reportedly have captured thousands of Saudis in a campaign, in an ambush that turned into, quote unquote, an all-out assault. And not just captured them, also captured territory. Recently, apparently, they released several hundred as a show of goodwill. What does this mean for us? Think about what I just told you. The country that we have this deal going back since FDR for oil for protection has just lost their land integrity to a band of rebels. They've been fighting these rebels despite having, the fifth or sixth most expensive military in the world and being backed by the world's number one superpower. They still, after 4 years, are still able to be hit for the first time, losing 5% of the world's oil. And at this point, supposedly losing thousands of troops. The battle, apparently, between a band of rebels has shifted. Welcome to the soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, you find yourself coming back often, please like, share, subscribe, and of course, you can always support a PayPal patron. This is a massive story, and I don't quite understand how this story doesn't get the airplay that it deserves in the media here. It may have massive geopolitical consequences. If you remember back in, I don't remember the exact year, I want to say 2014, but it might have been a little bit earlier, a little bit later. Obama administration was trying to get through the JCPOA. This was in the New York Times. And in trying to get through the JCPOA, Saudi Arabia comes to the United States and tells Obama that they want our green light to go into Yemen and our backing to do so. Obama gave them this green light because ultimately, even though he thought it was going to be a bloody war that wasn't going to be finished in a week or two or however long they said it was going to take, ultimately he wanted to get the JCPOA done. He didn't necessarily want them interfering. Saudi Arabia got that war. Obama got their JCPOA. Now, That war is still going on. The JCPOA, not so much. Now, as that war has gone on, they have weaponized, meaning Saudi Arabia, with our help, starvation. They've weaponized disease. They've killed hundreds of thousands, indiscriminately murdering civilians. And I say indiscriminately, and I use murder because if it's indiscriminate, then at some point it is just murder. We've helped them in this murderous pursuit. Saudi Arabia, with this massively expensive military, has not been able to take down a band of rebels going into, what, year 4, year 5? And not just that, now they were recently hit, meaning the oil fields, meaning they haven't been able to defend themselves. And now you have this indignant video.
ومساره تبدأ الآن الوحدات بضرب الهندسة بتنفيذ الآن مشهد مقرب لهذه المدرعات وهي بعد أن تم الكمين لها من قبل وحدة الهندسة وأبطال تتنافى مع عاداتنا وأخلاقنا وكذلك.
They're saying this is an ambush. And they're saying these are Saudi troops that were captured. And again, not just Saudi troops, also land integrity. These guys have been fighting a murderous war. UAE Saudi troops, apparently. Now, the U.S. has been willing to give all sorts of weapons. I mean, we've been giving them $100 billion in weapons. That's the thing, right? Oil for protection. And apparently they're buying weapons that they don't necessarily know how to use. And in not knowing how to use these weapons, apparently they're losing to what amounts to be a bunch of rebels. What's the issue? The issue here is that anything that the Houthis do, the United States say Iran was responsible. When the Houthis figured out how to build cruise missiles, and I gotta be honest, I don't care if Iran helps or backs the Houthis. We are literally backing Saudi Arabia. How on earth can you say you're helping somebody when we are helping the other party? That is utterly ludicrous. How on earth can the enemy define the terms by which they fight in this way? Meaning the Democratic Party saying, yeah, I don't like the fact that you're going to run X or Y. You don't get a choice. Dude, you're the opposition. But in this particular case, you have this indignant video. Now, what do you do with this? Right? What do you do with this? When the oil fields were hit, the United States says, they kept asking, are you going to hit Iran? Why? Because they immediately said, well, the Houthis can do this, so Iran did it. And whether it was the Houthis, Iran responsible or not, they were still helping the Houthis, so, they're still responsible. And what did they say? Are you going to hit Iran? Are you going to hit Iran? Are you going to hit Iran? Trump backed down and says, no, I'm going to send defensive measures. It always starts at defensive measures. We always inch our ways into these things. Not always, but inching our way into it, kind of like Vietnam. Defensive measures. What about this? What about this? They just lost land integrity. How do you deal with this? How do you deal with this? If you're the United States and you're supposed to be protecting Saudi Arabia and backing Saudi Arabia up, does that protection go beyond just selling them weapons? We've sent a few troops over there. Does this expand the number of troops in order to protect the integrity of this totalitarian state that chops off heads and put them on spikes? I hope you get what I'm saying. This bargain for oil for protection. Well, these guys seem like they need some protection. Interesting though, the way this is being dealt with is by saying that this is not what they say it is. The argument that the BBC is making, and even Voice of America, it just says, yeah, this is not convincing. What's not convincing? You believe they're just going to outright lie about it? I got to be honest, I don't believe they would outright lie about it. I don't necessarily give them any higher virtue, don't misunderstand me. But I don't give the opposition that virtue either. And it's easier sometimes to say something just didn't happen than to deal with the consequences of the thing that just happened. Meaning it is possible that we are working behind the scenes in order to bolster these guys to a greater degree than what the United States is saying. And that may include unsavory types. I mean, we found out that our weapons and whatnot were being, and Saudi Arabia was essentially using some of these terrorist groups in order to deal with some of their issues that they consider problematic. I guess my point is this, and how Trump deals with this, may end up dominating the next few months. If this gets to be a situation where Saudi Arabia seems like they are losing their integrity, meaning the border starting to shrink, if this video is legit and they have to deal with this video, meaning Saudi Arabia losing thousands of troops, the question becomes, what does the United States do? And do they turn around and try to blame Iran from the standpoint of helping augment the Houthis' ability to strike and to attack? Because it's very possible that they say that the missile strikes that were fired, because this attack had various missile strikes apparently associated with it. Meaning the Houthis are saying that, look, when they tried to run, we were attacking them with missiles and we were able to essentially get the rest, meaning hundreds were killed, thousands were captured. The BBC is saying unconvinced. Saudi is like, oh, that didn't happen. They're saying it didn't happen. This video is not what they say it is. All right. It's up to you. Who do you believe? I don't believe either personally, but it would be a little weird to release a video like that.
Minister in a command center, planning to launch an attack inside Saudi Arabia and coordinating with his forces on the ground. According to the Houthi spokesman, it happened on August 25th and lasted for 72 hours.
Specialised infantry units at the front line cordoned a large number of the aggressors' personnel in Najran as they managed to set up ambushes as per the plan. Our forces opened a way to allow the aggressor personnel to step into the ambush.
The Houthis claim more than 500 people were killed and at least 2,000 captured.
So, again, this is one of those things that one side says this happened, the other side, it says it didn't. You're always stuck in this position of who do you believe? I mean, look, I have to be honest. I'm more inclined to say it happened. I don't live there. I'm not sitting over there per se. This is just kind of a gut feeling per se. Maybe just from watching this stuff. But Saudi Arabia has been in this bloody campaign for 4 years, and it wouldn't shock me in the least if Houthis were being augmented in some way by Iranian forces. I don't know why Iran wouldn't do it. If I was them, I would absolutely do it. This kind of asymmetrical warfare type thing, and to put bite in a proxy war type setting, if that makes sense. I mean, we did the exact same thing in the various regions in in Southeast Asia and South America, for that matter. I don't know why they wouldn't do the same thing. All I'm saying is, this has the potential to turn into a major story. Donald Trump right now is in a bit of trouble, in a hot water. He has a population that hates his guts. Not all, but a significant sum. And that significant sum has the House of Representatives and a media that is complicit with that House of Representatives, with whatever they, for the most part, Democrats say. I mean, after all, they've ran with a conspiracy theory for the last 3 years, and media just lapped it up. And here we go again. My point is, he is in a Bill Clinton situation, oddly enough. And in that Bill Clinton situation, sometimes presidents act in irrational ways. And the question becomes, how does this president behave in a situation where it seems like, if this story is validated, that the United States and all of its weapons weren't able to protect Saudi Arabia? What does the United States do? And that is a fascinating question. I mean, the country itself, from the standpoint of polling, has nothing to send over, meaning they have no want to go and protect the totalitarian state. There is no person that signed up into our military that says, yes, I want to go and protect the state where they chop heads and put heads on pikes and execute women for trying to drive. That's not essentially what I signed up for. And yet, Donald Trump has already sent personnel over there. And it very well may send more. The story should be on the news. Honestly, the story should be front page. The story should be front page. I was about to complain about the mic too. Can't get my volume adjusted. What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong with the mic? Oh, I see. It's probably the way I'm getting closer and further from the mic. It's a new mic, so I'm not necessarily entirely accustomed to working around the mic, if that makes sense. I know that sounds weird, but it's not like my other mics were kind of in a different position. This mic kind of like it does this thing. I'll try to keep mind of it, Trudy. I'll try to be aware of it. And I'll listen to my videos too to make sure it's not too weird. All right, I'm not going to keep this. But I did want to talk about it. I mean, like, how we engage with Iran is going to be a big deal, man. Like, if Donald Trump went back to the JCPOA, Donald Trump could get a deal. Full stop. Iran would be willing to if he got rid of the sanctions and went back to the JCPOA. That is true. All of this has been precipitated by Donald Trump. This is another one of his policy failures, outright. And so, you know, it's like there's no way forward on this particular issue, and so it kind of just stands where it is. But the problem is it's not really staying where it is. It's in a process where if anything happens, and things happen that are unpredictable. I mean, the Houthis striking or being able to hit Saudi Arabia's oil fields, that wasn't predicted. That wasn't part of the process. And so what did they do? Oh, it was Iran. Well, it very well, with a different president, would have literally attacked then. The catch here is that in an odd way, we're fortunate, bizarrely, in the sense that Trump apparently really doesn't want a war. Now, ultimately, this might not be up to Trump because he's been so stupid, and I'm using that term because I use that to describe the behavior of allowing yourself to get closer and closer and closer to the brink of war, using that as a way to try to get gains. Meaning, A, that's against international law, but you're essentially bullying a country in order to try to get gains from those countries' political objectives accomplished. That country didn't want to work with you, which means you just continue to escalate higher and higher and higher with this notion that at some point they'd capitulate. All right, genius, what happens if they don't capitulate? Did you ever really think of that? Because if they don't capitulate, you're stuck in a situation of heightened tension, literally at the brink, where anything can happen that is unpredictable. And what do you know? What happened? You end up with a situation of Saudi Arabia getting hit, and they immediately blame the Houthis. Israel and Saudi Arabia both are willing to fight to the last dead American. So not only do you have a hostile actor from the standpoint of Iran because you've been putting pressure on him and you've been ramping up tension in this regard, you also have two other countries in the region that will gladly fight to the last dead American. Like, it's a recipe for disaster, and that's to put it mildly. And now you have this other unstable element where the Houthis have gained the capacity to not just get hit, but to also hit, and to hit in ways that bite. And not just bite Saudi Arabia, but bite the world's oil market. If you remember, when they were murdering babies, nobody thought about this war. Under Obama, nobody cared that these guys were murdering civilians in the way that they were murdering civilians. Nobody cared. Under Trump, they started to care. But that's because they hate Trump and they were using anything to hit Trump. But under Obama, nobody cared. They didn't care that they were starving kids. They didn't care that they were weaponizing the disease. They didn't care about any of that stuff. When did this hit the news? This hit the news when the oil fields got hit. That's when it hit the news. That's when people really started to like, whoa, we got to do something about this. Up to that point, it was just kind of like, oh, look at the dead babies and look at the starvation and look at Donald Trump and he's so close to this guy. Again, another issue where they gave Obama a pass. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Donald Smead, at this point, if General Bone Spurs institutes a draft, when the spins way out of control would not surprise me. Let me read that again. At this point, if General Bone Spurs institutes a draft, when the spins way out of control would not surprise me. No, it wouldn't surprise me either, and it concerns me. Action for Julian. Would you join us for hashtag Free Julian Assange? Would you join us for a hashtag free Assange vigil? Yes. Just tell me when. It depends on the date, but yes. Please don't be on a Friday. Don't be on a Friday. If you're not on Friday, probably yes. Yeah, man, this is a big story. And I have to be honest, I don't know, I can't necessarily predict how this goes. I mean, Donald Trump is going to be engaged with impeachment hearings. I mean, either way you look at it, he's going to be somewhat engaged with. Does that engagement draw him away from what's taking place in Saudi Arabia? And does Saudi Arabia reach out for some level of protection, kind of like a mob boss trying to get some level of protection to keep their kingdom in order? It's hard to predict this. Keep your eyes on this. It's an uncontrolled situation. I mean, for fuck's sake, these guys have just started to hit Saudi Arabia. And I believe this video. I don't, it's not that I think these guys are trustworthy per se. I just believe this video. And I think that Saudi Arabia has every reason to lie about this. Hence, I think they're lying about this. I think this video is probably real. And if this video is real, oh my God, we've now had the Houthis, rebels, who have the capacity to hit, plan, logistics, all of these things. I don't know if they were doing those things before, but they're damn sure doing them now. And if they are right, they've now taken Saudi Arabian land. Goddamn fascinating. Like, share, and subscribe. Thanks all.